It's complicated. All right, so stream recording has started. So,
Got it.
yeah, so basically how this is going to work. We're going to start the recording. Not yet, Churro. But we're going to start with the recording, and then we're going to do two things. We're going to do the counting game, and then 5 seconds of silence. Those are the two things that we do. And that will enable us to do some magical things later in editing.
Hey, Sappy again. Much love to you. Okay, so let me know when.
All right, so let us press the record button in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Record. Recording?
Recording.
Okay, good. So now we're going to do the counting game. So I'll be 1 and you'll be 2. So 1.
2.
1.
2.
1.
2.
All right, that should be good. And then we're going to do 5 seconds of silence starting now. All right, that should be good. So yeah, basically what those two things are for, the counting game is to figure out our timing. So when I go in editing, I'll have one stream that is just my voice, that it'll be me saying 1, 1, 1. And I'll have another recording of Churro that's just 2, 2, 2. So I need to line the pieces up, yours and mine, so it says, instead of just 1, 1, 1 and 2, 2, 2, it says 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. So that's what those are for.
So we'd be in sync, like the band.
Exactly. Exactly. That's the point.
Yes.
And then the other thing that we do is the moment of silence. And what that's for is to get the room noise of whatever recording environment we're in. And then I can use that in Audacity for noise removal purposes. So it's very technical. We do it every single episode. We've been doing it for over 10 years now. Well, not us two. We're almost 10 years. Churro's almost 10 years. Almost 10 years.
Yes.
All right, so I think we're about ready to get the show proper started. Everything looks to be recording fine. So, Churro, you ready to start the show for real?
For real.
Okay. Hi, everyone, and welcome to the 200th episode of Kingdom Hearts Union. I'm your host, Brandon, and I'm here with Churro.
Hi, everybody.
We're live on video.
Yeah, it's been what, 100 episodes since we were last live on video?
I don't know.
It seems like that.
Fun fact, I think this might be like maybe the 4th or 5th episode that I've done wearing pants. Because I almost never wear pants for these.
I'm wearing shorts, so
yeah,
I'm comfy. I don't know about you.
I think so. Like for the very first episode I didn't know if like Lauren and Daryl and all them, if they got on camera or not when they actually recorded. So it was like I wore pants for that, and then anytime we recorded like an E3 podcast, I was actually fully dressed. But every other episode,
we just
got
back
forget
from outside.
that. Yeah.
I mean, we're not going to be in like in the media room with no clothes on.
Yeah, so thanks to Drummer. So just for anybody, listening to this later on iTunes or whatever, so we are currently live streaming this. We don't usually live stream these, so I'm going to try my best to make this as pleasant of an experience for iTunes listeners as possible. So that, I guess that means we need to explain anything that we make reference to that's either in the chat or visual. But if there's anything weird that we talk about, if there's anything weird that we talk about, that's pretty normal for us. But if there's anything visual that we talk about that you can't see that we talk about, apologies. I'm going to try my best. All right, so this is the 200th episode, and Churro, I always ask you this, but what's up? How's it going?
Good, just I streamed earlier today. I streamed Horizon Zero Dawn for the first time.
Yeah.
Very good game. If you guys like a mix of like Tomb Raider, little bit of Assassin's Creed, and one other game, but I can't remember it. But it's a good blend of all that. The graphics and visuals are really nice. So
Yeah.
I started playing it because I got hyped of the sequel announcement for PS5. So can't wait for
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, I'm really excited for that. I've never played Horizon, but it's always been on my list. I hear so many good things about it.
It's
Like,
on sale right now
yeah, I
for
really want to play it. I
$15.
actually just finished. So I just finished a really big game, and maybe some of the people listening to this will be happy to hear. But I actually
Xenoblade.
finished. No, well,
Oh,
I finished Xenoblade a long time ago, but well, not the Switch version. I actually haven't even touched the Switch version. I did buy it.
oh,
It might be nearby somewhere, but I did buy Xenoblade on Switch. I bought the Japanese copy of it. But I finished Nier. I finished Nier Automata for the
you
first
got all
time.
the endings.
I got all the
Or
endings.
just-
Well, I didn't get all the joke endings. I got all
Oh, okay.
the for real endings though, and I gotta say that game is it's up there in terms of like my favorite games. I don't. It might be like top 10, somewhere in the top 10 of games, and I gotta say like we're Kingdom Hearts fans, so we're pretty biased when it comes to Square Enix stuff. I
Yeah.
know for a lot of people, so just talking general gaming discourse, for a lot of people, they may have felt less serviced by Square Enix this generation.
Mhm.
For the typical gaming audience, I would say games like Final Fantasy 15 and Kingdom Hearts 3, in terms of reception, and I'm sure you can agree with this, like general gaming audience wise, reception for Final Fantasy 15 and Kingdom Hearts 3, I would say more so Final Fantasy 15, has been a bit mixed.
Yes,
Like Final
definitely.
Fantasy 15 in the general gaming sphere, fairly mixed. Kingdom Hearts, if it's mixed, it's mostly because people don't know Kingdom Hearts and they're jumping into Kingdom Hearts 3. And that's you fooled yourself.
It's
you
expected.
fooled
It will.
you
It's
fooled
expected.
yourself. If you started with Kingdom Hearts 3, that's your fault.
Well, that was because of one of the big, I don't want to say the word controversy, but it was one of the big debates when it came to some of the influencers who were saying, "Oh, we're gonna, I'm gonna jump into Kingdom Hearts 3 without playing the other games, and I'm
Yeah.
gonna give it a low score because I don't understand what the hell's going on." So
Yeah.
it's like you got one of those things
So I get
happen.
that. So let's, that aside, for the general gaming audience that isn't like a huge fan of this sort of stuff already, I can say that they may feel less well serviced by Square Enix this generation. But I gotta say that outside of Kingdom Hearts and Final Fantasy, Square Enix, like I'm trying my best to see this from like a perspective of someone that's not 100% all in like I already am. I'm trying to see this from a more general gamer perspective. I feel like Nier Automata and Dragon Quest XI are some of the strongest games that Square has ever put out. It is up there with the greatest. You always hear about like Chrono Trigger. Like if you go on like general gaming YouTube sites and you see like, okay, top 100 games of all time, Chrono Trigger shows up, Vagrant Story, like these are games that are like, one and done, you can just get in, get out, and you're fine. Those kinds of games. I feel like Nier Automata and Dragon Quest XI are up there in terms of like being that good, and not just really good, but games that you can recommend to anybody. Even as a Kingdom Hearts fan, and I'm sure for you, Churro, it's the same. Even as a Kingdom Hearts fan, as much as I love the series and I will always love the series and always follow the series, I struggle sometimes when it comes to the recommendation side. Like, to recommend Kingdom Hearts to somebody is not recommending one game. You are recommending a huge series. And as we mentioned in our remake YouTube video about the idea of a Kingdom Hearts 1 remake, like jumping in on Kingdom Hearts 1 in 2020, 2021, whenever, that's that's a pretty high ask out of somebody. We're asking
Yeah.
them potentially to get into a game that is really, really old at this point and not exactly 100% polished, and they may get interested in Kingdom Hearts based on like a recent trailer, of Kingdom Hearts 3 or Melody of Memory, and they see this amazing, beautiful game that's really polished, and then they also see, on the other hand, Kingdom Hearts 1, and Kingdom Hearts 1 still looks great.
Yeah,
Stylized
oh,
graphics. Stylized graphics hold up well, but
gameplay wise, that's a different
yeah,
story.
gameplay wise, even to be honest, animation to some extent. And I'm not talking
Yeah.
I'm not talking about the animated cutscenes you remember in your head, in your mind's eye. I'm talking about like the ones where it's those 2D faces and they're just like bah, 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 bah. Like the mouth flap is like it's the 2D mouth. I'm sure you remember those cutscenes. Nobody likes those. Nobody like thinks back and is like, oh, I love the animation of the Kingdom Hearts cutscenes, and that's the thing they like. Nobody likes those, and those don't actually hold up as much. So it's thinking about from a recommendation standpoint, it's hard. But when it comes to Nier Automata and when it comes to Dragon Quest XI, I can, without a doubt, I can recommend those to anybody. Like they're just that good and just generally good and
It's kind of nice
accessible.
because like it's kind of nice to hear that because when you think of Square Enix, a lot of people look to Final Fantasy
Yeah,
or Kingdom Hearts. It's like what were the two biggest games that people were looking forward to? Final Fantasy 7 remake, Final Fantasy 15, Kingdom Hearts 3. But then like here you have them releasing Nier Automata
yeah,
and then Dragon Quest 11, and then like they were kind of like afterthoughts. And then when they were announced, and then once they were really released
yeah,
and the reception was really great.
yep,
Now people can't get enough of these games, and now they
yeah.
want more from these series, which goes to show that Square Enix doesn't have to always rely on Final Fantasy or
No,
Kingdom Hearts to get them out of the bind.
and that's yeah.
They're in a long drought of unreleased games.
That's a good point that you bring it up because, like, I would say, and I'm sure you can agree with me, like, I would say since the PlayStation 3 generation and onwards, it definitely feels like Square Enix is a lot more reliant on their established series, namely Final Fantasy. Like, it feels very rare for that many games to come out that don't come with a Final Fantasy title on it. And just this generation, we've got Octopath Traveler. There was Bravely Default. I don't know if you can count that as this generation or not, but Bravely Default. Dragon Quest. I mean, Dragon Quest is a very well established series in Japan, but you also have to remember the prior Dragon Quest games. Like it's been since the PlayStation 2 since they've had a proper Dragon Quest console game. Like, as famous and popular as Dragon Quest is, even in that sense, it was not able to get a full console game until when did 11 release? It released originally in 2017.
Yeah.
So that's that's interesting. So yeah, it's been a while, and I gotta say, like, if you feel in any way disserviced by Final Fantasy 15 or Kingdom Hearts, like, well, I may really like them. I definitely understand, looking at the general gaming audience, I can definitely understand if that isn't like, if it didn't do it for you. But if that's the case, I 100% recommend definitely look into Nier Automata, look into Dragon Quest 11. If you feel like you used to like RPGs back in the day, like Dragon Quest 11 is one of those games. It's the same kind of game that you loved back in the PlayStation generation. They made a new one of those, and it's awesome. I gotta say, personally, super hyped. Even though I've already played it, super hyped that they announced Dragon Quest 11S for all platforms, and it's gonna be on Game Pass. So, I mean, not to
Game Pass,
not to
but I
overhype it
understand
like
though.
we
I
always do,
understand
but
though.
Game Pass, man, like I highly recommend it. Like, Game Pass is gotta say, one of the best deals in gaming. Period.
But not a lot of people, don't want to buy an Xbox.
Yeah, not a lot of people have an Xbox, and totally get that. Like, you look at that that Xbox showcase, and I'm like, you're not really selling me on the future of gaming here. But to me, that's not what this is about with me and Microsoft. With me and Microsoft, I don't care about their future in gaming. I'm thinking more about their back catalog. Because in terms of backwards compatibility, they are second to none. They have the best backwards compatibility, and they have the best service in gaming. I gotta say, like, nothing beats Game Pass in terms of that. That's how I'm playing Nier Automata.
Enter. What's up, dude? Been a long time.
Yeah, what's up?
Let's see. Pokemon Trainer says, at some point, can we hear you guys craziest Kingdom Hearts 3, even if it has been proved wrong since? Or maybe the craziest one you have heard.
I'll have to think about that one.
Same here. Maybe we could do it at the end of the show, probably.
Yeah. Or at least during the question segment. So yeah, let's get the show on the road. By the way, so anyway, for you new folks, Kingdom Hearts Union is part of the podcast series. Kingdom Hearts Union is part of the podcast series called Final Fantasy and Kingdom Hearts Union, and is presented by the Gaming Union Network. We release every Tuesday, rotating each week with Final Fantasy Union, and we come out on the iTunes Store, Spotify, KingdomHeartsUnion.com, and
Kingdom Hearts Union's Twitter, which is at KH Union.
Give us a follow. And we have a 2-segment show today. We have a news segment, and we have a question segment. What? There's news?
Wait, what?
Yes. There's
what?
one piece of news, and that's it. Nothing else.
What?
Yes, there is news. We always say this. Like, what? There's news? Look, we always find something. It's
Brandon is like the expert at finding something when there is nothing.
I will find something. I'm not saying this is like the most groundbreaking piece of news,
like earth-shattering, and like
we got something. We got one piece.
One Piece. We all found it in One Piece.
Exactly. So, in the way of announcements, as always, if you guys like the show, please consider supporting us on Patreon at patreon.com/ffkhunion. Our Patreon executive producers are as follows. We have Nahika Blaui, Alex and Rachel Troutman, who are at Akira Namejin, Guide Seeker, Billy Jackson, who's at _Billy Jackson, Chris Morales, Miles Ribbons, Michael Graham, David Calro, Barry Norton, who's at Nortron0, Chris Pope, who's at Dr. Pope 181, Thorin Bullen, who's at Massacre 23, and Churro, if you could take these last ones.
We have Yannick Nod, who's at Yannick Nod, Tori Patrick, Rhea Stella, Fayez Bialy, Flip Serdnus, Lewis James, Tom Hughes, who's at Tom_Hughes22, Zach Duranto, Yam Potato, ! Rachel Casterton at Ubernoon Ray, Zelda Clone at Apes Type Novels, Darren Matthews at Doomster73, and make an appearance in the chat too as well as Joseph Robertson, who's at Pokemon Trainer J. Thank you.
So, and be a part of the show. Send us your questions to khuquestions@gmail.com. And as we've said in the past couple of episodes, just fair warning. Kingdom Hearts 3 Remind spoilers are fair game. So
but if you have... Dark Road. Wait, Dark Road? Yes.
I mean, we actually spoiled the last episode of the only episode of Dark Road last episode, so maybe? Look, we'll warn you. We'll warn you first.
Okay, there we go.
I think in the case of Kingdom Hearts Remind, spoilers being fair game is we don't have to say spoiler warning. We can just say the spoilers.
Yes.
Whereas with Dark Road, if we spoil it, we'll tell you first.
Well, it has to be like mind-boggling, like something new that's never been brought into the series.
And there's really not that much that we can...
So far.
There's not much to say about Dark Road, so... Yeah. Anyway, so moving on to the news. So our news for this episode, we have one, and then Pokemon Trainer J brings up a good question: is this real news or is this Brandon news? This is real news.
Real news. And then Sadie says
Actually,
Brendan was able to find the most niche questions to
yes,
troll myself.
that's so true. That's so true. Um, I actually could, if you really wanted to, I could add Brandon news. We could extend this thing out. We could add more news topics if you'd like. Because
I know.
I have Brandon news too, if you want. But this is the news topic that I have today is real news. It's not big, but it's news. Okay, so the only piece of news that I have is that Kingdom Hearts Dark Road main quest update is scheduled for late July. Now, that means there's a very strong likelihood when this podcast releases as like a recorded version somewhere, it is very likely that this is already out. So then it's not news. But at least while we're recording this is news. So technically,
I mean, it's finally we're getting something after a month of just minor updates.
yeah, for real. So that's the piece of news. Like, if you like Dark Road and you're interested to see the continuation, there will be a new Dark Road update before the end of the month.
I mean, it left as a big cliffhanger, so hopefully we finally get to see what that meant.
Yeah, so glad to hear that. So I mean, I'm interested to see like where they take the story next. I'm gonna be honest though, Churro. I don't expect that this next story, whatever the story revelations are in that, I can't imagine that they're gonna be as big as what we got in the first episode. Like, I don't think they can keep that up, honestly.
It depends, because you got to remember, Union Cross dropped a big bombshell recently.
Yeah,
I think earlier this year with Maleficent and the Ark. So basically, you never know. Like, Nomura has a thing for surprising us.
Yeah.
So we'll have to wait and see.
So in terms of news, that's the main piece of news. If you want like a little bit of Brandon news, let's see. Well, Churro, you tweeted about this. The Kingdom Hearts Square Enix North America is looking for a new senior marketing manager.
Yeah. It's like
for Kingdom Hearts specifically.
Yes. I became friends with like the last three senior project managers recently, and then they're all really talented, nice people. It's just sad to see that them leave, but they got to move on to other things.
Yeah, for sure.
But now it's like a new person I gotta make friends with, whoever fills that position. A lot of people were telling me to fill that position. I'm like, that's nice, but this is a senior position, not an entry-level position, so it'll be a lot harder for me as someone who has no degree in anything.
Yeah, it's that's the thing, is when they say senior, like, here's the thing, and this is going to be like, points of advice for people who are looking for a job. When you're looking for a job and the application says, okay, you need this much experience, I say personally, and this is just on me, if that's all there is as a barrier, still apply. Even if you don't have experience, still apply. The difference is when they specify that position is on a higher level. If you have no experience and they're looking for something on a senior or management level, that's a little different, because when it comes to a senior level, that means you're not just doing that job. In reality, that is like, you're supposed to be a leader for the people that are already doing that job. So in reality, there's other people doing
team.
Exactly. So your actual job of what you're doing is not necessarily just what is listed in the title. So, so this is marketing manager. Your responsibilities isn't just doing the marketing managing. Your other aspect of that job is also leading the people that are also marketing managers, setting an example for them and helping them become the best marketing manager that they can be. So that's senior level responsibilities. So I say this personally as someone who is, going to be looking for a job in the next year or so. And in the particular field that I'm looking at, they have that same sort of divisions. So they have the junior level, they have the senior level, and then they have lead. And that's the division. So the higher you get up the ladder, the less of the actual job you're doing, and the more mentoring, and the more managing, and the more like morale. You're focusing more on morale and managerial stuff and that sort of stuff. It's less about the job that you're supposed to do and more about like actually managing a team at that point and setting an example. Yep. So there's a difference there, and yeah, I can totally understand why like that's not necessarily, on your plate. And yeah.
Hey, Wave.
Hey, what's up? The sound of the sixth wave. Two celebs. No, not a celeb. Not at all.
No, not a celeb either.
All right. So that's really like the news. So we covered one Brandon news and one real news. So I think that pretty much covers our news for this episode. So now moving on to the questions. So our first question comes from Blue Assassin Y. And they ask, with COVID-19 really putting a damper on movie releases, do you think this could have an effect on Kingdom Hearts getting newer movie releases in a future title? They can't add in recent movies if they never got released, right?
Well, you got to remember that I remember a long time ago, Nomura did say he gets exclusive screening.
That is true.
To new Kingdom Hearts movies.
He knows he can see, movies in advance of their release. But I guess logically speaking,
it depends up to how completed they are.
Yeah. I guess logically speaking, if they don't release in time, then yeah, they can't come out. But I mean, if they release, then eventually, and he saw it earlier, then maybe it's fine.
It is, yeah. But not only that, you're forgetting it doesn't have to be newer releases.
Yeah.
Nomura's got a huge backlog of older Disney films. Even once, like I said, Nomura did one, that was straight to DVD, The Country of the Musketeers. Yep. So it's not limited to that. Plus, it's also, we never know if Nomura can actually dip his foot into TV shows as well. Yeah. So, there's a lot for Nomura to work for, depending on what he has in store for the storyline.
Ultimately, there's so much. There's so much out there that, even like getting away from like newer movie releases, like you were saying, Churro, like there's Pixar movies, like other than Toy Story and Monsters Inc., the full Pixar catalog has not been touched. There's potentially Marvel, like that's another possibility. There's in theory Star Wars. I guess it depends on the EA deal ending. What does that end, by the way? That's pretty my understanding is
deal.
Yeah, 10-year deal, and I think it's almost up.
Yeah, then it also depends, and it's also, to me, honestly, it's not really looking good for EA side.
Yeah,
because,
it doesn't.
Their games that have been released and have not really been well received. Minus Fallen Order.
Yeah, and even then, Fallen Order, it came out very, at least from what I've heard, great game that was rushed. So, it seems like they figured out what the game should be, and the game is awesome, but there's a lot of technical issues, a lot of bugs. In particular, I saw some issues specifically of like, if you run through the world too fast, it like the rest of the world doesn't stream in quickly enough. And literally, like when we're talking pop-in, we're talking of pop-in of 3D models that are close to you. Like you'll be walking through one of those rock walls, and at the end of that rock wall, there's nothing there. all you see is the skybox, and then instantly it's just like bam, all the 3D geometry just pops into place in front of you. So we're talking that level of problems. So yeah, EA hasn't had the greatest track record. Obviously, I think 2 years ago with Battlefront 2, that was pretty huge. It led to like huge legislation on an international level talking about loot boxes in games.
Yep, and not
Um,
only that, it wasn't well received either.
no, I think though it's gotten a lot better. Like I've heard good things from people that like it at this point,
But I
but
think it's too late though, because
it very well could be. I totally agree. So I'm interested to see, Churro, how things go with Marvel, because I think Disney's going to be looking at this. They're going to see, okay, let's see, how are the Marvel games coming out? How do those turn out? And then how do the EA Star Wars things turn out? Because they're very different, you know, very different in terms of how they're handling it. With Marvel, it's like we will work with everybody. Marvel maintains the rights to their games, and they will license out on a game by game basis. Whereas in the Star Wars deal, everything is licensed to EA. No one else can make Star Wars games other than EA.
I think that EA can probably get like per game license. I don't think
Yeah.
the Star Wars will give EA a long contract
And
based on their
yeah, even if they do, yeah, I think I agree with that. I definitely see them switching over to a more game by game basis
so that allows
sort
other
of thing.
companies to give it a hand, because they're probably going to go back to the drawing board. They're probably going to be
Yeah.
like, okay, EA didn't really plan out exactly how we wanted to, so let's just not sign any exclusive deals. Let's give the licenses to these different companies and see what they can go for us, and then maybe if one is up to their liking, they could probably sign with them if they really want to.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, it's hard to say. I hope in the future that they adopt more of the Marvel side of things. Like at the very least, through this Marvel deal, like we have already gotten good games out of it. We've gotten the Spider-Man 2018. That huge. One of the best games of this generation. That being said, Churro, can you think of any other games that were like really good out of this Marvel deal so far? I'm struggling, to be honest. The only game I can think of other
You
than
have the Marvel Alliance for the Switch.
okay, I've
I
heard
heard I heard I heard
I've heard
good things
decent
about
things.
that.
Yeah, there's Marvel versus Capcom Infinite, and I've heard very mixed things
It's
about
very
that.
mixed.
Very mixed. Mostly
Then,
mixed in the negative direction.
yeah, they said it wasn't like anything like the previous Marvel versus Capcom games. I heard there was a lot of issues with it
Yeah.
and all that, and the switch to from 2D animation to 3D as well.
Yeah, I mean, so Marvel I mean, I'm not a fighting game like really huge on fighting games, but I pretty sure Marvel versus Capcom 3, it was 3D, but it was like cell shaded. Like it was really
Yeah,
stylized and trying to look more 2D style. And that was still at a point where they had more of the Marvel license, so they could have like pretty much anybody they
yeah.
wanted.
One of the disappointments was that the roster was really weak.
Yeah, and it's really on the Marvel side of things that it got cut. Like basically anybody that's not in the MCU. So we're talking all the X-Men, bye. Doctor Doom, Fantastic Four, bye. Like
Yeah, yeah,
that's
like all the
rough.
all the favorites that were in the previous games, like were not in there.
Yeah. I find this, just speaking as an aside, I find it pretty interesting like the characters in the MCU that are popular now. Like if you think back before the MCU, like I can't even think of how popular like Iron Man was back then. Iron Man was not popular at all. Like it was pretty much like on the Marvel side of things, it was pretty much just X-Men was really popular and Spider-Man was really, like, Spider-Man's always been popular.
Oh
But
yeah.
when I think about Marvel in the before times, we'll say, in the before the MCU, like the only characters I really thought had any sort of popularity, Spider-Man, Incredible Hulk, and X-Men. Like maybe Fantastic Four. Like that's pre MCU. And now it's like obviously Spider-Man's still popular. Incredible Hulk, he's popular because he shows up in Avengers, but he hasn't had his own movie. Fantastic Four has never had a good movie. you know.
No, because they just keep pumping out reboots because they want to keep the license for it.
Yeah.
So
Keyblade
as long as
Keyblade Spy Master has a really good point. We need to now measure time in terms of MCU and BMCU, as in before the Marvel MCU. That's a good
well,
one.
not only that, I mean, they bring up a good point. With then you got Marvel Avengers from Square Enix,
Yeah,
and a lot of
I'm interested to see how
pre-reaction
that
to it
goes.
is not has been mixed,
Yeah,
unfortunately, because they everybody's so used to the Marvel Cinematic Universe for variations.
yeah,
It's like so a lot of people just want to remember those type of heroes.
yeah. So yeah, I totally agree. Like at least for what I've heard so far, and yeah, I would say reaction to the Avengers game so far has been kind of on the mixed side, but at the very least, you gotta agree that it looks very high budget, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Very very high budget. Like clearly they spent a lot of time and a lot of money on whatever this is. So I'm eager to see where it goes. My only personal concern about the Marvel Avengers game from Square is the insistence on going on the Destiny slash Anthem route. Like to me, that style of game, I guess people call it the like a shooter, even though it's not really a shooter. Like it's just a loot based mission based game that just keeps going and going. This one might have more story involved in it, but it's this sort of like ongoing game as a service thing. Like to me, that sounds like a marketing buzzword that was very enticing to shareholders in about 2014, 2015. That's my feeling on games as a service. It's like this was something that was like the wet dream of some marketing guy back in 2015 that every single other project that has attempted this, other than Destiny, but even Destiny, has had problems. Like Churro, this reminds me of back in like 2004, like post 2004, when every company wanted to make an MMO. Like wow.
Yes.
Like so many pretenders to the throne trying to make the next big MMO, and then they come to realize, wait, making an MMO is probably the hardest kind of game you could ever decide to make. Like that is like the like highest difficulty in terms of getting that right. And I would say in the shooter space, it's pretty much just Destiny. And even then, like Destiny's had problems. Since day one, it's had problems. Destiny 2 has had tons of problems too. Like all you hear about is all the problems. There's a lot of people that love Destiny. So I would say Destiny is probably the most successful version of that thing. And even then, problems. So that's where I'm like, I've got a little bit of anxiety about the Marvel thing, personally. Even though Square Enix, very well funded, they got the money, they got like IP wise, they couldn't have chosen a more recognizable IP to make that sort of a game out of. So we'll have to see how that goes, but.
I mean, because when it first was revealed last year's E3,
Yeah,
and then people, because like they had no demos, it was just basically developer interviews at E3, and they were showing like special trailers or special gameplay video footage for those who got interviews, and
yeah,
a lot of people said it wasn't that good, and then like all the trailers that they've been releasing now, they said it's approved, but not so much.
Yeah,
So it's
yeah.
kind of worrisome for this title because, again, Square Enix, is always announcing things so far in advance. They had
Mm,
all this time, and the way it looks, it looks really strange to some
yeah,
people because it's not the MCU version. It's like,
yeah,
well, they're trying to prove a point by saying, we don't have to always create MCU
yeah.
variations of, Marvel game.
I mean, you look at Spider-Man 2018, and that's proof that it doesn't need to be Tom Holland Spider-Man. It doesn't need to be tied to a movie, and it can still be good. You also look at, actually, in the DC space, at the Batman games. Arkham Knight,
Arkham.
yeah, the Arkham series, awesome. Not related to any movies, and nobody is sad about that. Everybody's like super into that. Don't make it based on the movies, but there's just something about this iteration that, I don't know, I guess it's rubbing people the wrong way a little bit. Like, it's not quite hitting like what people are expecting out of Avengers. But I guess we'll have to see how that goes. One thing I must say, though, before we, just to tie it in a little bit to Kingdom Hearts, like, making licensed titles is so hit and miss. I just want to, like, really shout out the Kingdom Hearts team, because that's all they do. I mean, obviously there's the original story as well, but, like, Kingdom Hearts does such an amazing job at the whole licensed concept.
Yeah.
Like, every single world, like, there's like variation in quality, but, like, for the most part, in terms of, like, the level of fidelity, the level of production values, the level of entertainment values, it's really high on the Kingdom Hearts side of things. And they have shown so much versatility, being able to tackle 2D animated films, now 3D animated films, live action films, with Pirates of the Caribbean,
Pirates.
whatever Tron is. Shout out to my Tron shirt, which is mirrored now, so it says Nort.
Hey, it's a Easter egg.
It's relevant. It's relevant. Whatever Tron is, I don't know. Would you count Tron as a live action movie? I mean, it's
Yeah.
got live action characters, but so much of
Oh
it
yeah.
is like special effects.
Yeah, no,
But
but it's still portrayed by live actors though.
yeah. So Josh Gilbo, you bring up a good point. So all the character designs seem too bulky. Like, even the women seem really beefy, not fat, just like muscular. Yeah, I would say everybody feels really sturdy in a kind of
It
an odd way.
feels like the Chris Redfield, if you remember
Yeah,
Resident Evil 5, how they made Chris Redfield like all super buff and muscular, and then like the
yeah.
Resident Evil 7 and now the Resident Evil Village trailer, they kind of like toned him down a bit.
Yeah. Okay, so Josh, you bring up a really interesting point. I think I have a really good character that sort of ties in exactly what you're talking about, Josh, and it's Captain America. Captain America in the Avengers game. Look at his, like, chest cavity in the Avengers game. It's like huge. It's like a barrel, and, like, Cap is buff, but it feels like his underlying skeletal structure is, like, bigger. Like, if anybody was, like, actually big boned, Avengers Cap feels big boned to me, like, literally
He
big
found
bone, not fat. Like, his
he
bones are big.
It reminds me of like All Might from My Hero Academia. Just
Yeah,
like
yeah, he's All Might. Actually, I kind of like All Might's design. Kind of feels more like what he should be, because All Might is, like, he's more rounded, he's more shapely, he's buff, but,
he's
like,
basically like based off of like Western like superheroes like Superman, pretty much.
yeah, like Captain America in Avengers the game really feels like a cylinder to me. So yeah, that's just interesting. So yeah, Churro, if you could take this next question.
All right, this is from Nomad96, and they write, "What was about Kingdom Hearts that led you to become passionate about it, and not just casually interested?"
That's a really good question, because, like, obviously, Churro, both you and I, we've been in the Kingdom Hearts community and working in the fan site space for a long time. You way longer than me. For me, I started a little bit in 2005 working for kh2.co.uk, and then off and on after that, and then 100% from 2011 on Kingdom Hearts Union. And there's a lot of game series we loved, and I don't know if we talked about it while recording, but like I recently have just played Nier Automata. Really love Dragon Quest 11, played that to death. Love the Persona series, Xenoblade, Ace Attorney. Like, there's so many games that I love, but you don't see me on a podcast making a podcast about them.
Yeah.
So, for me personally, I do remember a very specific instance, and this is this might be disappointing because I think it's not like a real big revelation, but I gotta tell you, Churro, like, in all honesty, I remember the specific point that turned me from someone interested in Kingdom Hearts to someone who must know more about Kingdom Hearts and must be extremely involved in discovering more and getting in with the fan base. And for me personally, that point in time was, let's rewind back. This is 2003 in the summer. And you got to remember, what is popular 2003 in the summer? Pirating music on apps like Kazaa and Napster and stuff like that. So for me, I was just downloading stuff on Kazaa, and I found...
Good old days.
I found Churro. I was like, I really like Kingdom Hearts. Let me search about Kingdom Hearts on this app, Kazaa. Maybe I can watch the opening and ending movie on my computer at any time. I don't have to beat the game anymore. Download the ending movie. It's like, secret ending. Now, I know about the secret ending of Kingdom Hearts. Sure, I know you know this where this is going.
I've heard the story before.
Yes.
And I know where this is going exactly.
So I found the secret ending, regular secret ending, and I download it. I'm like, Another Side, Another Story. I know that, but what about this other thing? Another Side, Another Story Deep Dive. What is this? 5 megabytes? I'll bite. Let me download this. So I download the Deep Dive trailer off of Kazaa back in 2003, 5 megabyte version.
And you got the lower quality version.
I got the low quality version, but that's all it took. And I saw it. And even then, and I've mentioned this before, but even then, I had in my head this sort of feeling of suspicion, not believing. Because, sure, I'm sure you remember the old days of being on Kazaa, and you'll download a video on there, and it ends up being something completely different. Usually porn.
Yes.
Usually porn.
Yes.
It's you download something, like there's clickbait, and you download it, and it's usually some like disgusting porn that's a joke, that they upload it as a joke. So here's me downloading something, not knowing what it is, and being pleasantly surprised that it was so much more than I could have ever imagined. Back in 2003, I was a huge fan of The Matrix. The Matrix trilogy hadn't even properly started, and here's this. Like, I'd already seen Another Side, Another Story, but seeing this, and to the level that they're doubling down on the idea of making this more Matrix-like, I was just like, oh my god, this is so cool! Like, that to me made me so excited, and I needed to know more. And by searching for more, that's where I found this guy over here on my right, Churro. And I found his website, which at the time was known as zitty.net. And Churro, you had the foresight to establish some sort of community, and you had a chat box on your site, and I made so many friends just talking on that chat box.
Everybody loved that chat box.
That chat box was great.
I never really posted on that chat box. I was like,
you were never on there. You just left it there.
I just put it up because I was on the forums. I was on Game Pass.
Yeah.
So basically, most of my time was there. But then I was like, well, how can I get people to quicker talk about waiting instead of waiting for people?
Yeah.
Chat box. There you go.
So yeah, there's this little chat box on his website, and I made so many friends, and we would talk about stuff, and that's where I could start asking about the series. Because at that point, like, there was no Twitter, there was nothing like that. I didn't have any friends that knew about video games, really. Like, back in
I
those
was the same
days, like,
position.
it was not common to talk about video games, and at least for me personally, like, there were people that like games, but there weren't people like into games. Like,
Yeah, it's not like today's world where like
no,
everybody
no.
is okay to be a video game,
Yeah.
player or nerd or anime nerd. Back then it was like, I don't want to say the word taboo, but it certainly felt like it was taboo because back
Yeah.
then you had the cliques in
Yeah.
high school,
There was
junior
cliques
high.
in high school. Yeah, exactly. There were cliques.
So
And not just cliques, but also I feel like pop culture was a lot more homogenous back then. I remember back to those days. I don't know if you remember this, Churro. I think on NBC they had this concept known as must-see TV. That's when there were things like Friends, Will and Grace, and stuff like that. And people would basically, these are the water cooler shows. Everybody watches the same media, everybody sees the same stuff, so that tomorrow at work or at school around the water cooler, everybody can talk about the same stuff. Everybody watches sports. Everybody watches the Super Bowl. Everybody watches the MTV Music Awards. Everybody watches The Real World. Everybody watches, there's these touchstones, pieces of media that everybody was into at that point in time. And there wasn't a lot of room for niches. There wasn't a lot of room for subculture in that time. Really, it definitely feels like to me that as the internet grew, in some ways, it has created more division in mainstream culture and created more opportunity for more special interests, more special interest groups. Like, at least at that time, in that day, there was really no entertainment in popular media that regularly talked about video games. And even to this day, and yeah, Josh Gilbo, you're talking about G4, and yeah, they are making a comeback. Like, G4 existed, but you needed a very specific subscription to G4. Yeah, at least for me, I didn't get G4 until I had DirecTV, and that was like way later, and there wasn't a lot of mainstream coverage of video games. And for me to find your website, Churro, and find other people, that was my first time, other people that knew about the stuff that I like. You know about anime? Like, I thought that was only something that I knew about. Like, I watched anime, and like, other than Dragon Ball Z and Pokemon, no other kids liked anime. And not only that, even liking Dragon Ball Z, you were bullied. Like, you like that show where all the buff guys are constipated and screaming all the time? Lame.
for me, it was Pokemon,
Yeah.
Digimon, and Sailor Moon. It was those ones. If you like Sailor Moon, like, oh, you're a guy liking Sailor Moon. That's not
Yeah.
that's not right.
Yeah. So it was such a weird time, and it was so refreshing to find other people that like the same stuff as you. And then not only that, like, coming into that community, it was like people were so inviting, like, oh yeah, you like Kingdom Hearts? Awesome. Yeah, let me tell you about all the cool Kingdom Hearts sites that are out there. Ansem Report, Game Facts. This is where you need to go if you want to keep up to date on the news that's like straight out of Japan. Go to these places. Like, obviously here, Zitty.net, you're good here. Churro posts all the time. Ansem Report, that's a great forum. Like, they hooked me up into the community and like where to like get the information at that time. Because now it's obvious. If you want to get into a new fandom, go on Twitter. See what the people are talking about there, and you'll find everybody that is important in that community, and you'll figure out how to get involved in that sort of space, so to speak. But back in the day, not clear. And yeah, at least for me, it started with Deep Dive, but then it continued with your side of things, with Zitty.net, and then later me getting hooked in with kh2.co.uk, the owner of that website, Pete, and he got me on staff there. And yeah, that's it. All started with Deep Dive. Like, I have a very consistent story that starts with Deep Dive, and it's very on brand. So maybe if this is not like all that surprising to you, sorry, but that it is true for me. Churro, what was it for you? Because you started earlier. You started with less information than I did. What was it about Kingdom Hearts for you that got you into it when there was so little?
My thing was that I I was somebody who spent a lot of time in the library during lunch
Yeah,
breaks and homeroom reading fan fiction. Like I bar
yeah,
none, I was a huge fan fiction person, and one of the during the time, like you said with the anime stuff,
yep,
the biggest like two animes that I watched were Pokemon, Digimon.
mm-hmm.
So a lot of things that hooked me was crossover. What
Yeah,
if what if these two stories were to cross over into each other's worlds? And then lo and behold, this was before like Kingdom Hearts even came out. Kingdom Hearts came out when I was a senior in high school, and I was started reading fan fiction when I was in like ninth and 10th grade. This was like 98, 99. And then Kingdom Hearts came out. It was about a boy exploring Disney worlds and being
yeah,
involved in those storylines, which was something I've always written in my fan fiction that I never posted. Was what would you do if you were being able to visit these worlds and interact with the characters that you enjoyed with?
yeah,
And Kingdom Hearts truly brought that to life.
mm-hmm.
Being able to hang out with Alice from Alice in
Yep.
Wonderland, Jack Skellington, Peter Pan.
And it was
It,
big budget for the time.
yeah, it was very big budget. It was something unheard of.
Yeah,
Like you never hear of Disney, you know, doing something like this, especially for a video game company.
yeah,
Like, you would think that because you would see the movie Who Framed Roger Rabbit, you saw Disney had a cameo, in that movie. You saw Mickey Mouse
yeah,
and Bugs Bunny in one the same scene, and that movie blew
yeah.
my mind to see
I gotta
something
I
like that
gotta
happen.
say that was probably at that time that was probably the biggest budget, the most like well realized crossover ever at that point
Mhm.
was Who Framed Roger Rabbit, and that's a movie. You didn't see that in the game space at all.
And to me, that felt it was like my that was my Who Framed Roger Rabbit moment right
Yeah,
there. And then upon completing the game, seeing Mickey Mouse appear at the very end to help you seal the door, and then I was so excited to see all that, the ending and then the secret ending, and then I was a huge lurker on GameFAQs
mm-hmm.
where you know back then you had to rely on big you had to rely on forum,
Yep,
and forums around that time weren't really active as much. You get people here and there asking questions about how to defeat this boss, or
yeah,
where
yeah,
do I get these items, or where to find, etc., etc. It's like I started because stop becoming a lurker, becoming like answering questions,
mm-hmm.
helping people getting the response that I got, and then it just evolved into one whole giant thing. It's like here I am being immersive with these people who have questions, just like Sora was arriving in these worlds to help the Disney characters with their problems. So it's
Yep,
kind of like a mirrored, like kind of like a whole, parallel worlds,
yeah,
coming together. So mine was mainly based off of, fan fiction crossovers and me myself being involved with that community sense of helping
yeah.
others like Sora did without any hesitation.
Yeah, and at least to my understanding, I think you mentioned this before, Churro, but you already owned your website prior to that. Like you already had
Yeah,
that set
it
up,
was
and it was
Ziddy
later
was
that
like
you converted it to a Kingdom Hearts thing.
because Ziddy was I gained the nickname Ziddy because of Zidane from Final Fantasy
Yeah,
IX,
yeah,
and I was on a Pokemon message board, and I made a lot of friends there.
yeah,
And then I created Ziddy as a site as like a personal blog to me because around that same time I was going through a really rough patch of my life,
yeah.
and so when Kingdom Hearts Final Mix was releasing in Japan that
Mm.
December of 2002, again the questions arose in
Mm.
GameFAQs was what is Final Mix and why is it being
Yeah,
re-released and why was it being re-releases at full price,
Yeah.
you know. And then I did, I spent like a day like of my time searching internet about why it was, and I came
Yeah.
across a thread and Japanese about what it was coming, what it was about. So one of my friends at the time online, I sent it to her, and she translated for me what it said. So
Yeah.
here I had this wealth of information of what Final Mix was going to be about.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, well, I need something that can point the message across
Yeah.
without having people ask the same question over and over and over again.
Yep.
Because whenever I would answer those questions of what Final Mix was about on GameFAQs, you still see a flood of questions come in
Yeah.
what exactly what Final Mix was. So I was like, you know what? I thought to myself, huh. I was like, I have a site already, so I was like, you know what? I took it down, and then I just put up like one of the most laziest layouts you can ever
Yeah.
create for a website, and
Yeah.
like smack dab in the middle was what is Kingdom Hearts Final Mix and why is it being re-released? And there was the points, a
Yeah.
re-release of, because little people know that the North American version of Kingdom Hearts got some bonuses that
Yeah.
the original Japanese version did not get.
Exactly.
Like for example, it did not get Sephiroth. It did not get Kurtziza, because that was
Yep.
part of a contest in North America where your name got to be named as a boss.
Yep.
And since Japan never got that, they re-released that plus more extras on
Yep.
their end. So when I found that revelation, a lot of people were like, "Well, that's not fair." I'm like, "Well,
Yeah.
considering how Japan never got what we got,
Yeah.
so
That's not fair
it's
either.
it's not fair either." So so me, funny thing is, since I graduated in 2003 and from high school, my mom was like, well, what do you want as your graduation gift? Because my older brother got a car
Yeah.
for his graduation gift. So I was like, I want a Japanese PlayStation 2 in Kingdom Hearts Final Mix. So I got that as a graduation gift.
Yep.
So I was able to finally play Final Mix, in June of 2003, even though I started reporting what it was, and like and the nice funny thing is that after I started telling people where to go to find that information, all of a sudden people are like, "Oh, where do I go for the newest, information?" City.net,
Yeah.
City.net. And pretty soon it just took off.
Yeah.
My site crashed within a day.
Yeah.
It was only up for a day that it crashed
Yeah.
because of everybody was trying to access the site. So because I came across a few people who had capture cards
Yeah.
back then. Capture cards back then were not cheap
It was
either.
really rare.
So they were able to record the new scenes, the new fights, and the newest secret ending. And I remember I had to download all those videos from one person who went by the name of Xenosurfia
Mm-hmm.
on Kazaa. So we did,
Yeah.
we did straight. I went to her profile and downloaded straight from her. I had a DSL,
Yep.
1 megabyte down at a time, so I was able to download those videos like much quicker than 56K, but it still took a few days. I was able to get a 72 megabyte version of Deep Dive and put it up on my site, and that completely killed it.
Yep.
And since then, I've been helping people
Yeah.
just like Sora would, with no
Yeah.
hesitation.
There was so much. Yeah. Back then, like the concept of Final Mix is so confusing. To explain, it's like this re-release that has a re-release that's exclusive to Japan that has content from the English version of Kingdom Hearts and has English voices, which it's like you're releasing a game in English in Japan only? What? And
Because they found out that a lot of the Japanese fans love the English voices.
yes. So I
Because
wanted to
they
actually
used a lot of
talk about that.
original, yeah, they used a lot of original Disney voice acting from the
Yeah.
English version, and they
So
love that.
so I can say from experience now that I live here in Japan is that and most movie shops, when you buy a movie, And actually, even in movie theaters, when you go to watch a movie in the theaters, there's two options for pretty much every movie that comes out that's a Western movie. You can watch it dubbed, or you could watch it with subtitles. And that's regular in the movie theater. I actually watched so this was before COVID got crazy, so I was fine. I watched in the movie theater, I want to say in like early January, I watched Knives Out. Actually, no, probably late January. I watched Knives Out with Chris Evans and Ana de Armas and Daniel Craig. Great movie, by the way. Loved it. Watched that, and I watched it in English with subtitles in Japan. So that's normal. So yeah, a lot of people will watch all the Disney movies in Japan in English with subtitles. So that's normal. So even from our perspective, that might have been kind of weird. Like, why are they releasing this game in English? But
nowadays movies in here in America are doing the same thing. They're releasing Japanese anime movies.
Yeah.
You have the option of watching in English
for anime fans.
Japanese.
Yeah.
And subtitles.
Yeah, for anime fans now, like yeah, of course, makes total sense because for a lot of these, like anime, like Japanese voice original is best for a lot of things. But yeah, if back in the day that it wasn't as standardized, so yeah, it must have been that aspect alone was pretty weird. Other than that, there's there's new content and we don't get that, and there's a new secret movie that hints at the possibility of a Kingdom Hearts 2 and we don't get that.
And you gotta remember, it took
it was almost 9 months,
11 years.
Oh, 11.
It took 11 years from Kingdom Hearts Final Mix releasing in Japan to the North America getting it, because we got the Final Mix version of Kingdom Hearts 1 in 2013 with 1.5.
It was a long time.
It took 11 years for us to finally get that.
Yeah, so yeah, it was definitely a weird release and a weird time, and there's definitely a lot of opportunity, and yeah, it definitely seems like for both of us, Kingdom Hearts Final Mix was kind of a touch point, because that's a time where, for fans that knew about Kingdom Hearts Final Mix, it was this like big injustice, and everybody needed to like, look, we need to consume whatever's in this somehow, and we need a source for that. And yeah, you were definitely like one of the first, there was actually a website as opposed to just peer-to-peer, which you never, like we said, you never know what you're going to get out of peer-to-peer. But if you have a dedicated website like what you had, you could actually have some certainty, like, okay, this is a Kingdom Hearts fan site. This is, it's a pretty popular fan site. You got this chat box. Back in the day, we used to have the user count, like how many people viewed the web page. Like,
yeah, and we had like what was it? We had like little mini banners and like little links to like thumbnails to link to other sites, and then like it's actually pretty funny because my website's spread off to two of the biggest fan sites that were in that era, which was the Answer Report, which is a theory based website for people creating theories for what the next Kingdom Hearts games would be about. And then Kingdom Hearts Ultimania. Pete was actually a user of my forum, which he enjoyed. Then he created his own. So it's really hard. It's still I still can't believe that, Pete would sometimes remind me, throughout the years I've known him, to say, it's because of you I was able to get this far in my own life, with the things I've done, because of this. So
exactly.
It's really, that's why when people say, why do they call you the Kingdom Hearts Grandpa? It's because I'm not the oldest, but yet I've been doing this a very long time. I've seen the community grow from something small to big the way it is now, and it's just a tremendous honor to be here before all you guys today, because without you there wouldn't be me sitting here with you.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I can definitely say that at least for me personally, like your website was like my first introduction to the community. And then I was also, Pete was also a part in, played a big part in that for me too, with his website. I worked there. We had we had interacted a bit, during my time at KH Ultimania. And then, obviously this podcast has played a huge role in my life. You helped me get onto this podcast, and it's because of this podcast that I'm here right now in a different country than I was born. I'm here in Japan. If you're looking on stream, you can see this is not the kind of room you get in the States. This, by the way, if you ever wanted to know, this is what is known as a washitsu. A washitsu is a room that has these like woven hay floor called tatami mats. And I'm in my it literally means like Japanese room. I'm in my Japanese room because this is the best audio I can get in my apartment. Every other room has wood flooring, so it's very echoey. So the reason I'm here is because of is because of a dream that I have in my heart that I'm still been pursuing for over 5 years now, and still not there yet, but it is something that has been greatly enabled by this podcast. And being on this podcast has also greatly enabled me being able to come here. When I did my application for the job that I'm on now, teaching English in Japan, I used this podcast as experience in my application. And they actually said, don't bring up anything related to video games or anime, because these job interviewers, they are looking for that because they want to weed out anybody that's an otaku. They don't want otaku that are like really crazy otaku going on this program, because they just think you're going to be trapped in your apartment and not integrate with the community that you're going to be a part of. But I made sure I brought this up, and not only did I bring this up, I actually like recently looked back at my my application. You had to write like a little essay. I specifically mentioned I am coming to this country. My goal for coming to this country for this job is to use it as an opportunity to live and work in Japan, learn Japanese, and ultimately my goal is to get out of this and work in the game development industry in Japan. I was very clear about that. And then, I went into more depth explaining all the different things that I do for the podcast. I talked about our experience going to E3, interviewing Tetsuya Nomura, the fact that, we're working with like very high level people in the industry and working through translators, and that's my international experience. I never did study abroad. I was never in any like Japanese related clubs in college or high school or anything like that. But my big extracurricular project is this here. And despite everybody's warnings to the contrary, this podcast was able to get me where I am now, and has been a really great opportunity to pursue my dreams. And I have you to thank for that. I have Lauren and Daryl, who started this podcast, Lauren McFadden, who was also started this podcast, was the original host of this podcast. There's so many people I can thank along the way. And it's like it's I literally can't imagine not only who I would be, but where I would be. Like, I would physically be in a different place. I would physically be in a different country. I would physically be on the other side of a molten core of a planet. Like, I'm literally on the other side of the planet now. I'm originally from Florida in the US. So like, there's so much about everything in my life that would be different if it wasn't for you, if it wasn't for this podcast and everybody in this community. So I figured that would be a good question for episode 200.
And it is nice too. It's nice to look back on where you started and where you are now. I mean, look at me. I mean, I may not have been, on the same path as you, but yet, you could still call it a successful path, because
absolutely.
Never in my life I would ever say I got to meet Tetsuya Nomura. Like,
Yeah.
honestly, when I played Kingdom Hearts, I had no idea who Tetsuya Nomura was.
Yeah. Who?
I had no knowledge of the gaming industry. I had no idea
Nothing.
about journalism. I knew nothing about this. It took until Nomura went to San Diego Comic Con in 2014 for an
Mm-hmm.
autograph signing with Hideo Kojima.
Yeah.
So that was 12 years after I started that I finally met Tetsuya Nomura.
Yeah.
Like, and this was just like an off, chance. I literally had to beg one of my friends to give me a Comic Con badge for the
Yeah.
2 days I was missing to get autographs from him, so I can get autographs on 4 days. I had to beg him. I told him, if you can let me borrow your badge for the autograph signing, I can get you in the E3 the following year.
Yep.
And he said, deal. So I got him in the E3. He let me borrow the badge. I got to meet Nomura all the 4 days of Comic Con. And then funny thing is, that same year, 5 months later in December, when 2.5 was releasing, I got to interview him the first time.
Mm.
So it's like, here I am sitting in this tiny little dressing room with Cecily from Kingdom Hearts Inside, and you have translators and you have PR folk behind us.
Yep.
And here we are in this tiny, cramped little room, at the Walt Disney Animation Studios, asking no more questions about 2.5.
Yeah.
Like, if I were to go back and tell my 2003 self, my 2002, 2003 self, that this was going to happen, yeah, he would have looked at me and be like, "You're crazy."
Yeah.
It's just been wonderful. It's like I got to, meet you. I get to meet Pete. I get to meet hundreds and thousands of people
Mm-hmm.
at cons, events. Not just fans, but also insider people. Within Square Enix, within other companies. With other journalists. I got to be involved in a world where it was just a dream.
Yeah.
I had growing up. Like, I never knew what I wanted to be. Like, I wanted to be just like you, Brendan, a game programmer
Yeah.
growing up. But then, in high school, if you were called a nerd, you were called, a geek, a dork,
Yeah.
whatever you call it, growing up, and that really affected my perspective on that. So then it led me down to a different path, which was, a marketer, a journalist, a podcaster, a
Mm.
streamer, a YouTuber. It's just weird how things just end up, you know, for me, like I can tell people, hey, I met Utada Hikaru
Yeah.
by really a rare chance
Yeah.
because I was standing on the correct side of the room for once.
Yeah.
And I got a picture with her.
That's
You
great.
think, it's just really funny. Just how I always tell people, like, if you're gonna do something, make sure you understand that it's not gonna happen for you right away.
No.
It doesn't matter if it's journaling, creating a website, streaming, podcasting. I see a lot of people. I was interviewed by someone who did Connected Hearts podcast, and he had a really good idea with that. Basically, it's just interviewing different people in the community, get to know him.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, he hasn't done a new one since mine, I believe, or I think he's done one more. But like I always told him, you need to continue doing this. This is a good thing you're doing. But I guess, and for us to do this as long as we have, from episode 28, for me from episode 20, 10 going on 10 years doing this, it's not an easy thing. But it's like eventually you'll get there if you just keep going for it.
Yeah, for sure.
And that's what I love telling people, just to keep trying. It doesn't matter if you get one person listening or one person watching you. I still stream with an audience of 1 or 0 people at times, but sometimes, hey, I'm enjoying myself, and just don't think about it.
Yeah. There's a quote that that definitely speaks to me and that I've been living by very hardcore, specifically since 2015, because there's a very the situation itself, and I think I brought it up on the podcast before. The situation itself, not huge. Like, it wasn't a huge interaction. And even then in the moment, and even now thinking back on it, like, there wasn't much in that situation itself that was really all that big, but it definitely served, and I still remember it served as a big turning point for me, and served as a turning point in my thinking at that time. Was an interaction that I had with Tayasue at E3 2015. I talked to him, and I let him know what my goals were, and I asked him, what would it take to join the Kingdom Hearts team if I wanted to come on there as an artist? Like, what would it take? And then the first thing he asked me was, "How's your Japanese?" And I was like, "What?"
That
was
was
like,
that was the wall that, he
that
put up
was
in front of you.
that was the wake up call. And like at that time, right? Like, Churro, let's think back to 2015. At that time, let's think back to, I want to say, like, November of the year before. That's when Hajime Tabata for the Final Fantasy 15 team, he was going out on Twitter and all social media being like, all right, we're hiring for Final Fantasy 15. We're asking for everybody. I don't care what experience you have, no experience, whatever. If you want to come work in Japan, apply, everybody apply. And I was just like, what? It never occurred to me, like, you could work on Final Fantasy, what? It's like, it never occurred to me. And it was at that point I was like, all right, I need to start like thinking about, if I ever wanted to do something like that, I need to like think about what I would want to put in an application like that, work on my portfolio or something. And I worked on some stuff in advance, and I brought it to E3 and I showed it to Yasuo, and he seemed to like it, but he still was like, well, how's your Japanese? And that had never occurred to me, because when Tabata was talking about his situation and his team, he specifically said, we don't care if you know Japanese or not. And I had assumed the Kingdom Hearts team was the same. I had assumed like, oh yeah, Disney, that's a English speaking company from an English speaking country. It should be fine. There's, Yasuo speaks English, right? So, like, I would be fine, right? And then I, experienced that, and it wasn't much, but him asking me that led me to really rethink, like, okay, so what do I need to, if something like that was something I wanted to do, what is it that I would need to do to achieve that as a goal for myself? And then I started thinking and, looking online, and I found a really great quote, and it was talking about how to be lucky, or more specifically, how to be successful. And it's a very simple formula. There's two variables in the formula. That's it. And you ask anybody, this is not a get rich quick scheme. This is something you explain it to anybody and they agree. This is how success works. There's two factors. It is something plus something, and it is your opportunity plus your preparation. That's it. So opportunity, that's being in the right place at the right time. That's, knowing the right people, talking to somebody that, could offer you a better life or offer you whatever you're looking for. And then there's your preparation. That's the hard work that you do to make yourself a valuable person, a valuable thing, like the thing that will make you capable of achieving great things. So opportunity is something that I realized at that point is something that just comes. Like, you don't have to try too hard to get those opportunities. The much harder aspect of that is the preparation. It is the training. It is getting your skills up to the level that they need to be. And that was something that I realized, was that in 2015, I was at the right place at the right time, so to speak, but I was not prepared. I had nothing. I didn't have Japanese. My art was okay, but it was not enough to make anything of that experience. And it was that turning point that I was like, wow. So if I wanted to pursue something like that for myself, what do I need? And it was only later that a mutual friend of ours on Twitter, Square Enix gal, Olivia, she posted on Twitter about the JET program, which is Japanese Exchange and Teaching Program, where you can come to Japan, teach English, learn Japanese. It's a great into the country. And on top of that, she said, and this was the turning point, she said, people that work in the JET program, on your way out, there is an event where you can interview with Square Enix because they hire people out of the JET program. I was like, what?
Yes. Hook, line, and sinker.
Hook, line, and sinker. I had heard about the JET program prior to that because, I watch people on YouTube that live in Japan.
She just came back from the JET program too.
And I was just like, I'm not really all that interested in teaching Japanese or teaching English. But then when she put it in that context, it was like, boom. Okay, that is, so far, no one has ever pointed out any possible route for, something that I want to do. No one has ever pointed out anything. Here's an opportunity. Let me go hardcore on that. And I went nonstop. It was agonizing months, applying to the JET program. If you look it up, very difficult, agonizing getting onto this program. But I went through it and I came here and I've been on this program for 4 years now. Next year will be my 5th year and final year. I can only be on this program for 5 years total. That's the other thing. So there's a limit to this. But yeah, if it wasn't for that experience with Tayasue, that would never have happened. And I definitely have to say, just to reiterate, that I really do constantly think about that formula of success. That is something that I highly use as a measuring stick for how I'm doing in my life and how I'm doing trying to achieve my goals. Is our opportunities are one thing, and they come. And thanks to this podcast, it is possible for me to get opportunities to talk to really high level people in the places that I want to work. But if I'm not prepared, just talking to them means nothing. The opportunity alone means nothing if you don't have the preparation. If you're not ready, if you don't have, if you are not what they need, then what's the point? So that has been a very important thing for me, is even though I'm teaching English, that's not all I'm doing. I'm, in terms of preparation, I'm basically working 2 full-time jobs. Not really. I only work 1 full-time job. But the preparation side of things, I spend more time preparing for what my future is. And I've been doing this for, 4 years now. Hardcore. Studying Japanese, studying art, studying the technical side of game development stuff. I've been working real hard on this, and it is exciting for me now. I will say, I'm getting to a point where I can finally start talking and showing some of the stuff that I've been working on, and it's getting close. I've been very silent. If you look at my Twitter, I don't talk on Twitter very much. I haven't for the past 4 years, and I'm adopting this concept known as shut the up. I don't know if you've ever seen people on Twitter that announce projects way too early. Yes. Oh yeah, I'm making a new Kingdom Hearts I'm making a Kingdom Hearts fan game. I'm making a remake of Kingdom Hearts whatever. And they announce it really early, and then they'll post updates, and then it never comes out. Eventually the project just ends. How many fan projects do you know like that? There's that Chrono Trigger one where it was the remake of Chrono Trigger in 3D that was announced back in 2004. That was this fan game that got shut down. It's because they talked too early.
Yeah.
So.
And then if you look at games that there's a couple of projects that had releases that surprise releases, and they did fairly well before they got shut down.
Yeah. So I'm not calling out anybody, by the way. I'm calling out me. And that's why I've been pretty quiet on social media apart from this podcast. But and I will say that, yeah, very shortly I'll start showing what I've been working on. And the only reason I can say that with any level of confidence is because I've worked so hard, and most of the stuff I've been working on is like it's already presentable. I could have shown some of this stuff back in like November last year and chose not to. So, yeah, getting close. I've only got one more year on my current contract that I can even do this. So, yeah, I'll be looking for work and I'll be strutting my stuff. And I've got a lot of stuff. So, excited to do that. But yeah, anyways, let's move to the last question, Churro. This one comes from William Santos, and they've got a really good one. I hear a lot of people say they want a Final Fantasy world in Kingdom Hearts. But when I think about it, I can't think of one that would actually fit well in the format of Kingdom Hearts. Disney worlds don't have a lot of variety in them, so it's easy to fit them in as one location out of many Disney worlds that you visit. But I can't imagine, going to a Final Fantasy VII world, for example, where literally the whole planet is well defined in the main game. Am I the only one who thinks this is weird?
No, because I'm in that same type of boat where how that's always been a long debate of whether or not a Final Fantasy world would belong in Kingdom Hearts, and more often than not, Final Fantasy has always been to me like, and even Nomura's always stated this, but it's always stated that Final Fantasy has always been a cameo. It was only there to help sell the first Kingdom Hearts game because they were unsure that
Yeah.
a Disney game would sell on its own like that because they were coming off the release of Final Fantasy X, so Square Enix needed some firepower to help sell Kingdom Hearts, and it worked. But now this whole thing where that's why Nomura has put it in storyline that some of the Final Fantasy characters come from Radiant Garden and not their own world, and that's because I mean, one of the difference between like a Disney world and a game is that they can condense the story by a
Mm-hmm.
lot and still make sense.
Yeah.
Whereas Final Fantasy world, you would have to find a way to condense that whole game into a short story. So it's like how would you explain like Cloud going back to who's from like, or Squall and Aerith and Yuffie who's from Radiant Garden? How would you explain that this is not their world, but then they end up back in their own world, which is the Final Fantasy world? How would you be able to explain that to the audience who just was explained that they come from Radiant Garden? It's a whole lot of retcon that they would have to
Mm.
do to explain that. They've already established these characters coming from Radiant Garden or other worlds. So it's, to me, it's just that I think that Final Fantasy world should not be in Kingdom Hearts unless Nomura is really that desperate to have it in there.
Yeah, I agree. I couldn't see it working really as a world. The only thing I could think of that could kind of work, but it would need some good story context and would be, let's say there's a boss fight and you have an arena that just that arena alone, that's all you get, almost like like the city of Final Fantasy. Like there's an arena, it's based on that particular world of Kingdom Hearts, you fight a boss there and that's it, you leave.
Yeah.
Like not a world, but sort of like the world is a cameo. It's just
Kinda
like just like with Lingering Will, where you just show up, you show up in Keyblade Graveyard, you fight them and you leave and that's it. Something like that. I could see Midgar working for that. That's a very iconic location.
That I could see, but as a full 100% world that you actually visit via
No.
Gummy ship.
I mean, Midgar is the only one that I think could work as a world in and of itself, because it's like it's got its own self-contained journey. But like, could you imagine any world like in Final Fantasy X? If you had to pick one location, what would it even be? Like Luca for the Blitzball tournament? Is that it? Is that the one you pick? Do you go with Bavel? Do you go with
Part of the Probably
Xanarkins?
the Blitzball
Yeah,
tournament.
Blitzball. Yeah, Luca. Like that's for me. That's what it would be for 10. Like for Final Fantasy 8, maybe like there's
Alan
like
Garden.
Balam Garden. There's that place where they go Dalet, where they do that mission there. Like Dalet, there's a mission there, and like I could see them maybe swinging. Like okay, Sora joins them at Balam Garden. They get on the truck and they get on the boat to go to Dalet. Like I could see that whole sequence being in Kingdom Hearts, and that's it. But it just seems like
But
it,
but the whole
what's the
sequence
point?
thing is that would Disney allow that though?
I doubt it. No. I don't think so. I'm just like I'm trying to do the mental gymnastics to figure like okay, what place would work, and then yeah, like you said, after that, like would Disney approve of
Because
this? Would
it's
it be
still
worth
Kingdom
it?
Hearts is still Disney's game, so they
It's
still gotta
still
have to
yes,
say
it's
it.
still Disney's game. You got to remember this. It's a Disney game. Still, like I'm trying to think of other games. Honestly, Churro though, one world that could work, even though I'm not the hugest fan of this game, Final Fantasy 13. I actually think Final Fantasy 13, the fact that it's so linear, it could actually work.
It could. I could see that.
13 would
I mean,
work. Original
yeah,
13, I'm talking.
you've already got a sense of a factual city inside of Kingdom Hearts with Japan, Shibuya,
Yeah,
and to Kingdom Hearts 3 already. We just don't
yeah,
know how exactly it's gonna fit in all this.
yeah,
We maybe that could change, the opinion of what Final Fantasy Worlds. I mean, I'm so only speaking on my own personal opinion.
yeah.
Like, Nomura could always easily change that, but you know, honestly, I still don't see the appeal of a Final Fantasy world because that's not what I fell in love with Kingdom Hearts. If I
Yeah,
wanted to be in a Final Fantasy world, I would pick up that Final Fantasy title.
yeah, exactly. Although you bringing up Shibuya and just the whole Japan Shinjuku, Shibuya Shinjuku area, I mean, technically speaking, it's a world based on Versus 13, which was a Final Fantasy game. So,
Which is what we're probably hinting at.
yeah. So, kinda. Like, if you really want a Final Fantasy world, kinda. That's kind of what it is. Yeah. So, hard to say, but yeah, I don't. Yeah, just the way it's presented, just the way that Kingdom Hearts works, I just don't see a Final Fantasy world really working that way at all. Yeah, Brandon said Versus 13 drink. Yeah, it's a drinking game. I said deep dive already too. That's got to be worth a couple of shots, right?
The prophecy is fulfilled.
The prophecy is fulfilled. He said both of the words that he always talks about. I didn't talk about Unreal Engine 4 yet.
Or 5.
Or 5. Yeah. I'm so excited for Unreal 5, by the way. Okay, let's have a quick technical corner because I do want to talk about something with you Unreal 5.
I'm just gonna be right here while you explain it.
I just wanted to say. So recently there was a tech showcase for Unreal Engine 5, and they were talking about it, and they confirmed something. Taking a big drink. They confirmed something that I assumed about Unreal, but actually bodes really well for both Kingdom Hearts, whatever the future game is, Kingdom Hearts 4, let's say, bodes well for Kingdom Hearts 4, and it bodes well for Final Fantasy 7 Remake, the next one. And that is that as far as Epic is talking, when they're talking developer to developer and not talking to the public, when we're talking developer to developer, they're saying you can basically just treat Unreal Engine 5. It's just another upgrade for Unreal Engine 4. We're just calling it Unreal Engine 5. It's not a different engine. It's literally the same engine. We're just calling it Unreal Engine 5. It's got new features that are really important and have, that's going to add new functionality to the engine. But you can port your project over exactly the same. The engine it's the same engine. We just call it Unreal Engine 5 as a branding thing. And the main difference is that Unreal Engine 5 has two new huge updates, which are Nanite and Lumen, which we've talked on prior podcasts, so I won't go crazy into them. But if you elect not to use Nanite or Lumen, it's the same as Unreal Engine 4. It's got all the same features. Everything in Unreal Engine 4 is in Unreal Engine 5. It's all there. That was not the case, by the way, with Unreal Engine 3 to Unreal Engine 4. Some things carried over, but you could not port your project over like that. Whereas, yeah, you could think of it like Unreal Engine 4.8. Like, it's literally just like another point release for Unreal. They're just calling it 5 at this point to sort of indicate that this is targeting next gen. Like, it's got next gen features in mind. Now, to be clear, both Nanite and Lumen, these are features that can run on current gen. They can run on current gen. They might not run well, but they can run. That's the thing. Is like, specifically Lumen. They actually said, Lumen, it works and it's fast, but Lumen, the lighting thing, that's gonna be a harder push on like the GPU and the CPU. Nanite is fast, is what they're saying. Nanite super fast. Pretty much anything should be able to use Nanite. Lumen, that's going to be game by game basis. Currently, it's looking like a 30 FPS feature for next gen consoles, PS5, Xbox. But they're working really hard now, and they said it's already way better. The demo that we saw is old, is what they said. Demo that you saw is old. It's already better. It's already faster. We're targeting that by release, which, to remind you, release is going to be late next year. For actual release, UE5, they're hoping Lumen will also be a 60 FPS feature for, PS5, maybe Series X. But in terms of like actual performance now, it's on the lower end. But so for anybody worried, we kind of mentioned it before. Like, Epic has actually like doubled down and been like, yeah, as far as you're concerned, just think of this as Unreal Engine 4, and it's just a new version. Port your project over. It's that simple. It'll work the same. I mean, it's got the same issues.
Development won't take as long, and because basically
it's the same.
You said, port everything over. It's the same thing. So development on Kingdom Hearts 4 or 7 Remake Part 2 is not going to take as long.
No. Yeah. It would be like them staying on let's say hypothetically they just decide, let's stay on Unreal Engine 4. Them staying on Unreal Engine 4 versus upgrading to Unreal Engine 5, it would not really affect anything. And even if they went to Unreal Engine 5 and then didn't add in any Unreal Engine 5 features, it would be exactly the same as if they just stayed at whatever Unreal Engine 4 version they're at. It's the same because it's the same engine. It's got the same features. It's just it's more a matter of, okay, once they're in Unreal Engine 5, they can explore, okay, what's Nanite like? What's Lumen like? What's the performance characteristics? Is this worth using? In the case of Nanite, I think Nanite is pretty universally worth them using it, because basically what Nanite's going to enable them to do is make their background 3D models, anything that's in the environment, they can bump the quality up on that a lot in terms of like geometry. Like, it'll be a lot smoother. But in terms of Lumen, that's going to be more like they're going to need to decide if that's worth using or not, if the performance hit is worth it. If they do use Lumen, that's going to mean that their lighting can be a lot more dynamic, and you can look at the Unreal Engine 5 demo yourself at the beginning part where they're moving the light. There's like a light coming down in that cave shaft, and they're like moving it up and down, and you can see the way light dynamically moves in that situation. They could decide to do that or not, but either way, like, so what would that give them? Number one, it would give them time of day. It would give them the ability to change the time of day in the world. That's the number one thing it would give them. It would also give them a lot more detailed, a lot more realistic lighting that's dynamic. But if they decide not to use Lumen, they could still just do the lighting like they're doing it now. It'll look better because they can run it on next gen hardware, but they can just use the regular lighting and not worry about Lumen at all and just use Nanite to improve their background quality. That's a completely viable, feasible way of using the hardware, and it could run well. So we'll have to see. They've got plenty of time. They've got projects coming out now that are, it'll still be Unreal Engine 4, but that will be releasing shortly, Melody of Memory. So they've got time till that releases. So we'll have to see. Yeah, Nomura eyeing up Lumen for the new Kingdom shader. Yeah, actually, Kingdom shader is the only part of this whole equation that's a little bit up in the air. Depending on how much they've customized their version of Unreal Engine 4, that'll determine how easy it is for them to upgrade to Unreal Engine 5. But if they didn't customize it that much, then it's easy. That is basically what they're saying. The more you customize Unreal Engine, the less they can guarantee in terms of ease of migrating over. I would say for Final Fantasy VII Remake, I think they're pretty much using basic UE4 as it is. Kingdom Hearts, my gut feeling is they haven't customized much. Like, everything that they're doing is pretty standard UE4. Even what they call Kingdom shader, like, you can do all of that in regular Unreal Engine 4 materials. Like, it's pretty standard. So I don't think it's all that complicated. They can. I don't anticipate a very complex porting process. So we'll have to see. But that's just my guess. All right, so that's pretty much our episode for today. Our music for this episode is as follows. We have a cover called Kingdom Hearts Dive into Heart / Hikari music remake. This is from Enrico Deana. They're on YouTube. They have a ton of Kingdom Hearts covers and remixes. So definitely check them out. They're so great. And this is such an amazing cover, so I hope you enjoy it. And the next Kingdom Hearts Union is scheduled for the 11th of August. That'll be our 201st. 200. I almost said 201.
201.
It'll be episode 201. And as always, if you guys like the show, please subscribe to Final Fantasy and Kingdom Hearts Union on the iTunes Store. Just search for Kingdom Hearts, and we're number 1.
Wait, that's one finger.
One.
Not 2. 1.
Not 2. 1. And, of course, you can catch every episode at KingdomHeartsUnion.com, Spotify, or
Kingdom Hearts Union's Twitter, which is at Kingdom Hearts Union.
And, as always, please support us on Patreon at patreon.com/FFKHUnion and send us your questions to khuquestions@gmail.com. All right, guys. It is that time. It is goodbye time. Churro.
Bye, guys, in the chat. Thank you, Wave. Thank you, Games and Movies Enter. Pokemon Trainer J,
yes,
Epsilon,
everybody,
Otaku,
appreciate it.
See, we got BioRox's, Dozler, Donut, Goofy 2020, Hohume, Josh, Okami, Phantom Lion.
You're all the best.
Ted Drummer, you guys are all the best. Thanks. You to all the Patreon subscribers too as well.
For sure.
Appreciate it.
Oh, Mandersnatch showing up at the end with the clutch. What up?
Hey, thank you so much for joining, Mander. Appreciate that.
So
the long episode. Hey, it's worth the long episode.
It's episode 200. It's gonna be long.
Yeah, it's a celebration.
Exactly.
And my room's getting darker because the sun's going down.
Yeah. My room lighting has not changed because I just have this. I literally have my iPhone pointed at my face and it is so bright. So if you see me wincing at all in this video, it's because I keep seeing my iPhone.
I'll just turn it on. There we go. Now you can see me.
And at last I see the light.
The light.
All right, guys. Churro, say goodbyes.
Bye, guys. Thank you for joining us for 200. And here's some more 200 episodes, I guess.
All righty.
If it's possible.
And I'm Brandon saying goodbye. This has been a KingdomHeartsUnion.com production. And stop. Now, I'll just tell you, I only stopped the Audacity recording.
Okay, yeah, so did I.
Okay.
So we're still streaming.
We're still streaming. We're still here. We're still here. I guess like if you guys have any quick questions before we go, we could answer those. This is a Twitch exclusive.
This is a final mix version.
Final mix version, exactly. Yeah. So Yeah, I hear like there's this one streamer I really like. He calls his stream that's the manga, and then all his VODs are the anime. So this is this
Oh,
is
but
this is manga exclusive.
let's
Do you
see. We got.
do you think Oswald the rabbit will be in future games? Maybe.
I hope
I don't
so.
think I don't think so, but
I
maybe.
hope so. If
He
Mickey,
belongs in the Disney Castle world. That's where he should be.
I think Yinsen's gonna be like, here, Riku, you deserve a summon finally, and he turns
Yeah.
the heart binder around. It's the Oswald symbol right there.
Yeah. It would be cool though if we I don't know, that's the thing. It's like it's such an opportunity for whatchamacallit, for Union Cross, but the problem is Union Cross only goes to worlds that don't make sense in the timeline. Like if they actually went to a Disney World at that point in time in history, Oswald is who they would find.
Yeah.
But no, that's not what we
Let's
get.
see. Who do you want to see as the next the new Princess of Hearts?
Well, Moana.
Moana for sure. I was kind of disappointed that Honey Lemon or Go-Go was not named as Princess of
Yeah.
Heart because like they were really overemphasizing Go-Go in the Big Hero 6 world.
Yeah.
So I was
they
like,
really were.
I was like really pulling for that. So that was kind of disappointing. But I kind of hope Go-Go
Yeah, Go
would
Go
be.
could
It's
work.
like that'd be a good surprise one.
Trying to think. I guess
Hmm.
could Elizabeth Turner? I mean, she's dead, right? I don't think that works.
Wait,
I don't see
was she
Elizabeth
dead?
Turner as being like a princess of heart, like really on the light side. She does a lot of bad stuff. So
Yeah, she that's not really princessy material there.
yeah, the only one that I could see like without the shadow of a doubt is Moana. Like Moana, very hardcore. She's got all that and more. I guess in theory, if they did Princess and the Frog, Princess Tiana,
Tiana, everybody wants Tiana. I would love to see Tiana
yeah, Tiana would be
as well
great.
too.
I'm trying to
All
think.
right.
What if there was an MCU world, Marvel? Who would be that in Marvel? I don't think anybody. Like Black Widow,
Bruce Banner.
no. Yeah,
Bruce Banner.
Bruce Banner, the Incredible Hulk.
Because after he merges with his two halves together,
Yeah.
so he definitely gives off that princess vibes. So
Yeah.
I see that an absolute win.
Now, if they do Star Wars, I could see Rey.
Rey
Or
or
I
Leia,
guess
Leia.
Princess Leia, but I would feel weird if they included Princess Leia. In
Yeah,
a
they would have to
future
do
Star
the
Wars
new.
game.
They would have to do the new trilogy.
Yeah, which is unfortunate because, like, to be honest, like I'm not really into the newer trilogy. I mean, it's good.
Yeah,
It's not
fine.
it's not bad. It's not bad. I will never say it's bad. And I enjoyed it when I watched it, but like every time I see it, I more feel like this is okay, but I like the original better. And I'm sure Tetsuya Nomura likes the original better too. I mean, he's old enough,
Yep.
so
Well, that's why he asked Mark Hamill.
yeah,
So
good point.
it's all making all perfect sense.
I guess though, I mean, if you think about it, you know, let's say you had to do a world based on I don't know, A New Hope, Star Wars: A New Hope. Like, could you do a world like that where you don't encounter Princess Leia at all? And I guess you could.
Probably it makes sense if they do it after the last movie.
Well, I'm thinking like let's say they did it based on the old movies, and let's say based on A New Hope, so the first movie that they ever released. If they did that, if it was during the trench run, the trench run, because Leia's not there, she's back on base.
Well, they would more for sure have to get a new voice actor.
They would get a new voice actor for sure. Yeah, I mean, like getting a new voice actor is not really out of character for Kingdom Hearts. I'm more worried about like using the likeness of Carrie Fisher, even though like
Yeah.
she's been in Star Wars media after, like that's not like
Yeah.
and they did the CG Leia for Rogue One.
They did it too for the last one too, the Last Jedi.
Yeah, Last Jedi. They had Leia there. So it's not impossible. And even then, like even if Carrie Fisher was still alive, her voice now doesn't sound like it did back then. So they would still need a sound alike that sounds like what Carrie Fisher sounded like back then.
Unless, unless
Mark Hamill, I think could still do Luke, even
yeah,
young
well,
Luke.
he still can.
He can do anything. That guy's he's a voice actor. He could do it.
Yep, definitely. So let's see. Let's get to the big question. What's the craziest Kingdom Hearts story you've heard?
Craziest that I've ever heard?
Mine, it's very vague because it was a theory a very long time ago.
Yeah.
It was during the Ansem report days.
Yeah.
It was when a lot of people thought that the blonde hair kid looking for Sora was, it was basically, they thought it was Sora's brother because they thought Sora was dead. And basically, and they were saying that Riku was the one that killed him because remember, he was the one that everybody thought that Riku was the one that the blindfold kid, aka Riku, was the one that summoned the Neo Shadows to attack him.
Yeah.
So a lot of people thought that the blonde hair kid was Sora's brother, and he was looking for Sora, and then everybody thought Riku was the one that killed him because he was the one that sent the Neo Shadows and fought with him, in that deep dive segment.
Yeah. There's so many weird ideas that people had back then because we had nothing. We only had that deep dive video to go off of. I mean, once we got full translations of the unknown fight, like you got more hints. Like once you got all the new Ansem reports, like okay, there's this concept of a shell. Like we didn't know the word nobody, even though the word nobody appeared in Deep Dive. We just didn't know the significance of it. I heard
especially during the 13 points.
Yeah, I heard some people think that there will be a new enemy and it'll be called the Endless, because in those 13 points, one of the words that they mention is endless, and they thought like, oh, heartless, endless. That'll be the next one, endless.
Yeah, the theories from the Ansem report days were always good. They had
some of them were pretty good, interesting.
And then I tweeted out a couple of weeks ago this fan game that somebody was working on.
Yeah,
it was called Inverted Hearts, and it was like a 2D like pixel.
Yeah, so you tweet that out.
Yeah, so I still have that working demo
available. Oh yeah,
and I'm wondering if
you should upload it somewhere.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. I was thinking about uploading it to
just for game preservation purposes.
Yes, before I lose it.
Yeah.
Kidding.
Quick question: do you think Luxord is Yozora's driver? Maybe.
That's what the biggest theory is right now.
I wouldn't be too surprised.
The two biggest theories right now when it comes to the future of Kingdom Hearts is Luxord is Yozora's driver and Demix is the Master of Masters. Or Luxord is the Master of Masters.
There was that other one. What's his name? There's that one mythological guy, because we have Odin and Baldur. There's that other one that has Luxord's letters in it.
Yeah.
Older or
Bragi?
Not Bragi. It has Luxord's D-U-L. It's not Dulor, but it's like one of those. Older or Loader. Might be Loader. It's one of those, but there's some people speculating that he might be the 7th student. Loader, yeah, it might be that.
Yeah, Loader.
So I could see that, like that would be like a big take, because that would confirm what his somebody name is.
Yeah, and the only thing we have separating us is, the release.
Yeah. That's really it. So, do you think Yozora is Master of Masters? I don't think so, but I wouldn't be. I mean, look, Master of Masters, I really hope. Like, sometimes they take off the hood and it's a face we've never seen before. I hope he takes off his hood and it's a face we know. And that's why it's surprising. I've seen a lot of people these days talk about, like, oh, it's time-traveling Sora from the future, and it's Sora that has used the power of waking way too much and has time traveled too much and has
My kitty's
become
here.
corrupted. What up?
He's bothering me. He's bugging me
Yeah.
right now.
So yeah, there's a lot of theories about Master of Masters, and yeah, hard to say one way or the other what way it's gonna go. Alternate timeline Sora, possibly. It could be same timeline Sora. It could just be same timeline Sora just from the future. Like
Yeah.
that could be
Yeah.
where Sora ends up if he keeps using that power.
Yeah, it's kind of like remember when Ansem the Wise used that machine and he blew up and he ended up in the realm of darkness beach.
Yeah, I
It
mean,
could be like
if you think about it from a philosophical standpoint, like someone who can freely travel through time and not just travel through time, but now with traveling between world lines, like let's say hypothetically, you know, the
well,
little by little Sora gets more of this power of waking, and then finally at some point he unlocks the ability to not only travel through time but freely travel through world lines. And then like as an existence, as a human so to speak, who doesn't necessarily need to exist in any one timeline. This kind of gets into almost like Rick and Morty territories where there's been like episodes of Rick and Morty where they screw up so bad that they ruin their world, and the only solution is screw this world. We're going to another. We're going to a parallel universe where we didn't do this because we screwed up so bad. Like
well, yeah, so,
if you do that, then like I don't know. There's that whole problem that we have of like, okay, Sora's gone to another world line, right? How does Sora know if he goes to another world line and meets Kairi again? How does he know that that's the Kairi he left behind? How does he get back to specifically his world line if if there's like infinite numbers of world lines? Can he ever go back to his own original timeline?
well, you have to remember what Kirti said. Without your power, you can't return to the world you came from.
Yeah. So
And not only that, you have to remember what Terra Xehanort said to Sora, as well as Master Xehanort during Remind, where they say, you two have chosen the forbidden path, and you
yeah.
must be prepared to make the ultimate sacrifice.
Yeah.
His
So
ultimate price, I should say. So basically, we don't know what the ultimate price entails to,
yeah.
because basically Xehanort, is already aware of what the ultimate price is because he's done it to time travel backwards. So that's what Sora did, was to use the power of awakening to kind of like time travel back.
Yeah.
So basically, and he meddled with the timeline as well. So
Yeah. In Remind, he meddled with it quite a bit.
So basically, they're well aware of what that is, but we as the fans still aren't aware of what it truly means to
Yeah. And
the forbidden path.
Pokemon Trainer J basically summarizes it. Is this Sora leaving his body behind but ends up traveling so much that he becomes almost ephemeral and omnipotent? And yeah, that's kind of what I'm getting at, is like that's a possibility. He could just be this like entity that, because he's so powerful that, no one human or no one world line has any meaning to him anymore, because he can just go anywhere. And if he doesn't like it, he can just go to another one. And, these people are temporary and you're temporary and that's temporary. It's like, you have so much power that nothing has any meaning anymore. Like, meaning comes in the fact that you can lose it. And if, losing it has no meaning anymore, you just go to the next world and it's whatever, then you lose all respect for what's in front of your face anymore. Like, there's just no meaning anymore. So I could definitely see like Master of Masters has that feeling to me. Like, he feels like someone who is like, he is so detached from anything. Like, that's the vibes that I get from him from back cover, is he's very stand up. He doesn't really care about anybody. Like, oh yeah, whatever. Like, yeah, here, take no name, record everything, just so I can see it. But yeah, don't worry about it. Yeah, there's here's the Book of Prophecies. Yeah, there's a traitor among you. You do this, you do that, you do that. All right. I'll at some point I'm leaving. So good luck. Bye. You know. Like that's the vibes I get off of Master of Masters. So honestly, I would not be surprised if that's, if that's not Sora, if that's not what Sora became, I would not be surprised if this is a character that has experienced that he has gone down that path and taken the same path that Sora is on, but taken it to the furthest extreme, where he's just this ephemeral creature that is completely disassociated from anything and just like nothing means anything. And since nothing means anything, screw it. I'm going to mess with everybody along the way. Whatever. They don't mean anything to me anyway. And if I screw it up, I'll just go to the next world line. Whatever. So I could see that, to be honest. So we'll have to see. So yeah, I think that pretty much wraps up the show. Sorry that we didn't play any like music in this, because usually like our intro outro music, I add that in post. I add that in editing. So sorry if there's no music, but yeah.
Good.
Watch and listen to the quote unquote anime version to hear that stuff.
Yep. It's coming out on Tuesday.
Yeah, it'll be out on Tuesday. So yeah, that's been me. That's been Churro. Let's say goodbye to our Twitch people.
All right, bye everybody. Thank you so much for sticking around. Thank you so much for your questions. We appreciate that. Hopefully we could do this again soon.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. So yeah, let us know what you thought about the format. We'll have to see if it's feasible. But yeah. All right, guys. Bye. 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 Bye.